Welcome to my 88K model railroad video, and this is the Rocrail Wiki demo lesson map. The lesson map is broken up into 6 different modules. Each one of the modules are categorized as basic and advanced. So we've got 3 basic modules and 3 advanced modules. The basic modules are speed, block, and routes, and the advanced is schedule, trains, and signals. The basic group allows you to run and control the layout. The advanced adds the knowledge base for scheduling, creating your trains, managing them, and then the signals to manage your layout as a whole. So we'll start with the basic and the speed module. Okay, let's see here. With Rocrail, the speed application is based upon 3 factors. It's based upon speed accuracy, speed consistency, and speed control. And each one of these factors, or the application of speed, is linked to a table. And those tables are table locomotive, table block, and table route. So it's kind of complex, but let's use this graphic to get a better understanding or better visual on how Rocrail applies speed. Okay, so here we are at the graphic, and we've got this, we'll call it the Rocrail Speed Mechanism, and we're calling it a mechanism because there are 3 or multiple components that are used to derive a targeted speed for a loco. We've got it separated, and there's in this blue section, we'll call this the pre-work. So you have to do some pre-work before you can populate the table locomotive. And in this pre-work, it's broken down into 3 sections or steps. First, you need to define your layout speed. And what I mean by that is on your layout, you're going to have, let's say for example, speed signs, and on the speed signs you're going to have the limit of the speeds for that particular area. So let's say for example, if it's a yard, or if it's the station, or if it's the main route, each one of them is going to have its designated speed. So you break that up, and then in this example you have the minimum, which is 5 kilometers, the mid range, which is 35 kilometers, the max is 110. The cruising speed will be 80% of the max, and then you have a max 2 value, and that could vary depending on whatever you want your max 2 to be. Now, as you would see in real life, there would be a posted speed limit, and that's where we're getting that information. From there, you have targeted speed values that you want to hit, and each train has a very specific how would you say, a very specific map in which it will achieve a certain speed. So it may take more speed steps for the smaller locomotive to arrive at, let's say, 35 kilometers than a larger locomotive. So the values, the CV values, would be different. And once you get those values, you're able to update table locomotive, and that's where you get your speed accuracy. So each one of the locomotives have different values, yet they can hit the specific speed target. This brings us in to speed control. So speed control is actually driven by table block and table route. They control and dictate how fast the locomotive is going to travel, either within the block or within the route. And the consistency is maintained by this cross reference to in this case, the locomotive's velocity, the V min, the V mid, and the V max. And because it's always consistent in hitting that exact value, which is linked to the speed of each individual locomotive and table locomotive, you're going to have that consistency. So hopefully this answers your question and puts things into perspective in how Rocrail controls the speed of your locomotive. So now what we're going to do is look at the example in or in Wiki demo, and we're going to look at the exact values and watch the train as it navigates through the layout, hitting each block. And we'll set it up where each one of the blocks will have a different control value, and you'll see that the speed changes based upon these the min, the mid, and max and cruise values. So with that, let's get started in the layout. Okay, so here we are at Rocrail, but before we get into the operations, let's look a little bit at the controls. If you right click here, you can convert or change the locomotive from automatic to manual operated. And once you click that, you can see that there's a designation here that shows that it is in auto mode or half auto mode. And these values can be found in the manual, and it looks pretty much like this. You have the modes, then these are the character or the prefixes that kind of tells you what state the locomotive is in. And you have these series where it shows that it's flagged, it's in a session, it's ready to, or it's in transition. Then you have the half auto mode, then the wait time, if it's in a block and it's waiting for the time to expire before it goes to the next block. You also have the states where it's either stopped, it's idled, it's auto, or it's waiting. These values are an indicator to what's actually happening in with the loco. And sometimes you'll have a long wait because you could set it up to random and it could be 30 seconds before it moves. And in that time frame, you think that there's something going on. So print this sheet up and have a little cheat sheet so you can see and watch what's going on. Here we've got the train set up and it's in the manual mode, but look what happens if we drag and drop this loco and place it in 3. You can see it highlights in blue and bold. That lets you know that it's in manual mode. If we come back here and change it back to automatically operated, you'll see that the bold goes away and it has its normal text, and then you see that this indicator is now removed. So pay attention, because sometimes you can have this set in manual and the train will not, or the locomotive will not go into auto mode and it won't do anything because it's in manual mode. So keep an eye on here. If you notice, it's updating, and now you know that that NW2 is in block 3. And it also can show the destination. It gives you an update of what's going on. So keep an eye on that. We're going to set up our test case, and we're going to be able to watch these things go on. So I'll set it up where you can see the different configuration and the changes. So let me set the camera up and we'll get things going. Okay, so we've got our camera set up, it's running. Let's set up our first test case. We will bring the NW2, we'll set it up in the block number 2, and we'll have it to travel to block 3. Now I've pre-configured the blocks to change in its speed, so you'll be able to watch it happen, and then we'll go back into the tables and then you could see where I set that up. So let's start the operation, track plan in operation mode here. Then we can turn on the automatic or the auto mode, and let's drag and drop the locomotive NW2 into block 3. So we'll make block 3 the destination. So here you can see the train takes off, and now in block 1 I set the configuration to the minimum or the min speed level, and now you can see it exit out a little bit faster, and then it comes into the block number 3, and then it'll stop. And notice in block 3 you see it shows wait, and then it has a value of 3. So, and then it stops. Typically you could have it to wait, and then it would continue on to a different block. So it all depends on how you program it in. But remember, we made this the destination. So let's stop the video, and let's look at the tables themselves. So let's come out of auto mode and let's go into edit. Let's look at the very first block, or let's look at the block 3. Let's go into properties, and then let's look at the details. So here's the details in the block, and remember we saw that it stopped and then it had the value of 3. That's the wait, and then we have the wait set up at a random between 1 to 30, or you could have it fixed. It all depends on what you want to do. But now you can see this is where actions are actually applied in Rocrail. Then the speed for 3 is minimum as it arrives, and then the departure is speed. So if we were to start this again, you would see the locomotive take off at cruise level, and then the minimum it stops. So it's using, like, in order to stop, it's stopping at 5 miles an hour or 5 kilometers, and then it's going to 0. In some cases you may have this stop at the minimum value and then stop, and sometimes that could cause it to overshoot where you're going to stop because it's going so fast. So let's close this one out. Let's go to the 4 or block 4, and we can see where we cruised into block 4, but at the departure we minimize it, and that's where you saw it slowly creep out. And then the same here, we can go into block 1 and look at the details, and you can see that the arrival is at the minimum, and then the exit is at the cruise speed. So this shows you how table block controls the speed of the locomotive, and the same, you can turn the speed over to different tables. So for example, let's go look at the table route, and in table route we'll show why table block is actually controlling these switches. So here in table route, if we go to speed and we look, speed is controlled by the blocks. If we want a table route to control it, then we would set these values, and then it would take control of the switch or the locomotive versus the block controlling the locomotive. So with this, it gives you a basic understanding of the speed, and you're able to go in, and you may be able to continue on with the management and operation of the wiki demo without looking at any of the other modules or videos that I have, because this gives you that general idea and the direction, and then you can kind of run with it. So as usual, like, subscribe, and we'll talk to you guys later.